Welcome back to the third installment of Alumni Arena, the Sports Night series where we talk to Northwestern alumni that are thriving in the sports industry. And today we have Jennifer Haskel with us, who just was honored as a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree. Thank you so much for joining us today. And first of all, how are you doing and how exciting is it to receive that honor last week, I believe?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. And yeah, it was quite the surprise. I actually found out just at the time that the list went live, so I didn't know ahead of the announcement. And I was actually in the US when it was announced. So luckily had some jet lag, woke up early and checked my email and saw the exciting news. So it's been really fun to share it with friends, family, colleagues, all of that. And I think for me, I'm really proud of the recognition as an individual, but I think the big thing is that it just is a massive reflection of the village that I have around me. And, I have some incredible colleagues, some incredible mentors that have really pushed me to, um, grow as much as I possibly can and have given me that platform to succeed. So it's been great.
Well, as a former Northwestern women's soccer player and a former member of NNN SportsNight, we're all very happy for you at Northwestern. At Deloitte, you're the knowledge and insights lead working with their sports business group. Tell me a little bit more about what your day-to-day looks like and some of the things that you get to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess within the sports business group, I have two main roles. One is to spread the messages of the sports business group far and wide across the market. So a lot of the ways that I do that is leading our different publications from the Deloitte Football Money League, which is a revenue ranking list of the top global football/soccer teams, the annual review of football finance, or our global Deloitte Women's Sport Report. So a lot of that is getting our messaging and point of view out into the market. The second thing that is probably my main priority is supporting our team leadership with our go to market approach for some of our largest, most impactful projects. So I work quite closely with our team leadership, essentially just to help from a business development side, but also in terms of understanding and helping potential investors, for example, understand the property or the market that they're looking at, or potential sellers on what the buyer's universe might look like. So every day to day is different, which is part of the reason why I love my role. And I think for me, the biggest thing is I'm learning something new every single day, which has been great.
That's so exciting. And the start of your learning journey, here at Northwestern, obviously you were here for women's soccer. So as a student athlete, but I'm curious from a career perspective, what you were thinking of going into when you first stepped foot in Evanston. Were you trying to take your soccer career further? Were you thinking of going into journalism? You were Medill, I believe.
Yep,
Awesome.
exactly.
And or did you have some sort of kind of business aspirations back then as well? I'm very curious.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so like you said, I was part of the women's soccer team. If I didn't have a few injuries, professional soccer probably would have been the dream. But I think one of the things that I learned when I was at Northwestern was I love journalism. I went right into the Medill School of Journalism, had some great professors and great contacts there. And I really liked writing the broadcast side of it. I really enjoyed public speaking, connecting with other people. But I also pretty early on took a few economics classes. And so liked kind of that analytical nature of econ and matched that with a bit more of the creative nature of journalism. And so I also did the IMC Integrated Marketing Communication Certificate, which I think is kind of the perfect combination of the analytical and the creative. So I think for me, originally I thought I might be broadcast journalism, want to be the next, anchor on ESPN or something like that. And that was where Sports Night was such a great part of my learning experience because to be able, not that many people, students have the opportunity to, interview certain people or to even sit on the desk and to be able to understand what it's actually like in a newsroom. And so that gave me a bit more of a feel of, what different types of options there were. Right after school, I ended up working for the Chicago Bulls in marketing. And I think that for me was just kind of that first, foot in the door of the global sports industry. And it was a great role being able to really understand the inner workings of a place like the Bulls. I think for me, that was kind of that first opening to there are so many different avenues that you can go within the sports industry. And I think for me, I had a couple great mentors, one of which was my head coach at Northwestern, Michael Moynihan. He is one of the people that's taught me so much about leadership, taught me about, the different values that I want in a different role. He was actually one of the first people that I texted when I saw the Forbes 30 under 30. So I think just Northwestern has given me so many of those mentors. I've also spoken quite closely with J.A. Nande and Candy Lee from Northwestern faculty that have helped me again open my eyes to where there are different avenues in the sports industry. And I think for me at Deloitte, it's been the perfect combination of all of my strengths, taking that public speaking aspect of journalism and broadcast, but also bringing in the analytical finance nature of my econ degree and my work at Morgan Stanley, and then bringing it together with what I'm passionate about, which is sports. So ultimately, it kind of worked really well to bring it all together.
That's so cool that you get to combine all of those things and to really thrive with all of those kind of different sides, sports and media and like the economics, analytical side of things. And obviously, as far as balancing act goes, being a student athlete is certainly like top of the list. Whenever I get to interact with student athletes, I'm always amazed. I don't know how, I don't know how you guys do it. So I guess my very simple question to you is, how did you do it as far as the time management of, I mean, constant practices and traveling and games, on top of a double major in, Northwestern, nonetheless. So just how were you able to make it all work um, as a student athlete at Northwestern?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit to be said about time management and those types of skills. I think for me, it was having that North Star of this is what I'm really passionate about and this is what I wanted to do. So, when I was at Northwestern, like you said, double major with a certificate, playing on the soccer team obviously was such a big part of my Northwestern career. But I also tried, especially as I got closer to my junior, senior years, to spread a bit further out of athletics in some ways. So I took leadership positions with Any for Life, which is the professional development program in the athletic department, the Association for Women in Sports Media, again, something that I was really passionate about, as well as the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So I think for me, like, we all have such limited amounts of time. For me, it was something on if I'm passionate about it, I dedicate my full self to it. So were there times where I stretched myself thin? Probably. But again, I think for me, like I'm someone that loves to be busy, loves to make an impact, and loves to connect with other people. And those are the ways that it allowed me to do that. I think I was really lucky again with the soccer team. We had such an amazing culture on the team that, yes, it was extremely high performing. Yes, it took a lot of dedication and time, but it also helped facilitate a lot of different connections, a lot of different conversations that then allowed me at least to kind of spread my wings a little bit and, push myself to do things outside of just the soccer team. And again, that helped me build so many connections that I still hold to this day.
And you already talked about Coach Moynihan, who has, of course, been a huge impact. And you guys had some really great teams when you were there, staple in the NCAA tournament. I'm also curious about the relationship with some of your teammates and, how much you stay in touch with them. And even if you want to touch on some of the memories you made with them while playing at Northwestern and I mean, how they've shaped, who you are now and your successful career in the sports business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I got really, really lucky with the girls that I got to play with. Because like you said, we had a great team and we're part of the NCAA tournament. And so, even my sophomore year, winning the Big Ten championship, like those are memories that will stay with me forever. And I think a lot of those friendships will as well. A lot of those girls are basically like my sisters, being the maid of honor for one of them at her wedding and seeing everybody else. Like those are the types of things that and the types of people that I'll have with me for the rest of my life. I'm here visiting New York City for just a couple days and having a full Northwestern women's soccer reunion with all of the people that are here in New York City. So I think those are the things that we make an effort to see each other. We make an effort to stay in touch. There's not probably a week that goes by that the group chat isn't active. And those are just like, that is a reflection, I think, of, the recruiting that Michael and his team did, way back when we were coming into school. But also, like I said, the reflection of the culture that he created. It's probably a bit of an overstatement, but, we are sisters. Like, I know so much about all of these different girls and would do anything for them. And I think, having that reciprocated just builds for the future. So, yeah, it has been easily one of the best things that I've ever done is going to Northwestern and being part of this group.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, on the, on the journalism and academic side of things, tell me about some of the connections and memories that you were able to form with people on that side of things. And if you want to talk about sports night, we'd all love that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Sports Night was such a fun time to be able to, essentially create stories. For me, sometimes it was telling stories about my peers in the athletic department. That was really cool to be able to see a different side to a lot of the athletes and a lot of the hardworking people that make the athletic department run. And so I think for me, I've always loved stories and being a storyteller. So Sports Night was my outlet to do that. Like I said, I still have those connections from Sports Night from the people that I sat on the desk with, which is incredible. And we were sitting there laughing about all the stories that we had. Whether that be trying to put together a show or whether that be grabbing coffees or this or that. And so we really created a lot of those memories both in the production studio and also out of it. So that was a massive part. I think as well, being able to be a part of Medill, the Association for Women in Sports Media, and having that platform to meet Sarah Spain, Mike Greenberg, like some of the incredible, alumni or people that would come to visit was something that I didn't even realize, how lucky I was and we were at that time. And now, kind of looking back on it, just realizing how great those mentors were, and to be able to keep in touch with, like I said, J.A. Adande and Candy Lee in the Medill faculty are still to this day mentors of mine that I see once or twice a year, which is pretty remarkable for living halfway across the world.
Oh, 100%. I have to ask as well, whether at sports night or in a Medill class, do you have any favorite stories, videos, or anything that you were able to produce that comes to mind?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I think one of the stories that I was able to produce was on, a men's soccer player who was an international player. And so getting to understand a bit of his background and how he got to Chicago and all of those things, I remember putting together that package and all of that. And then it's probably one of the I would say it's less funny, but some of my friends would say it was funny that was watching the show live. But as every show does, there are some technical difficulties. And as I tossed to the package, nothing ran. And I just
Oh
sat
no.
on the desk being like, we are, my first time ever sitting there having to think on my feet and be like, we're having technical difficulties, but this is what the story was about. And again, that just taught me a lot about improving and continuing on the conversation. And so it was a great story. Never saw the full light, but even just to be able to build those connections, like I said, being a student athlete and then interviewing some other student athletes that I might not have really connected with outside of sports night was really, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that and we talk about all the time within broadcast is just the live nature of it. It forces you to be adaptable, and I always, tell people how it's applicable to any job or any field that you end up in. Would you be able to attest to that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think my role, even right now, like I said, I lead a lot of our different publications, which brings the written journalism into it. Knowing how to write clearly is really, really important. And then as well, being one of our media spokespeople. So I'm on the other side of the interviews now, but that allows me to help, prepare for questions that I think might come in because I have that journalistic mindset. I also think, when working directly with clients, my journalism background has helped me know when to ask the right questions And not only does that help solve client problems, but it also helps deepen the relationship with clients because they understand exactly what you're asking for because you ask it clearly. And so I think that kind of technical education, as well as, like you said, on Sports Night, learning how to be adaptable has helped me so many times in my Deloitte career and in my previous roles as well.
Yeah, and like right out of college, once you're looking for a job, what kinds of things were you looking for? Was it in that marketing space? And how did that process go? And I guess what advice would you give people in soon to be my shoes, not quite yet, but in our shoes that are going to start looking for jobs right out of college?
Yeah, I mean, I think patience is one thing, especially with sport, tends to recruit a bit later. But I also think for me, I was looking in a few different avenues. So I knew I wanted to be in sport, was looking the marketing route, was looking kind of agency route, as well as some types of journalism broadcast. I think now there's so many different avenues. You could go and work for a newspaper or a digital sports site, or you could go and work for a social media agency or a marketing agency, that there are a lot of ways in which you can use your skill sets. And so for me, and this has been kind of my story each time I've moved roles, is like keeping it pretty broad because you never know what's going to show up, and being able to bring that expertise that you have because you've learned so many skills, even if it's not just technical journalism. You've learned so many different skills. So I always joke that, my journalism professors now would be so proud because I'm getting back into the journalism side a little bit. But again, I've had to use those same skills in every role I've had, even though it might not have been, my name as a byline in a newspaper. So I think keeping your options pretty broad and being able to clearly articulate what those skills have taught you and allow you to apply to each role, is the most important thing that's helped me along the way.
That's great to hear, and something that I think, myself and a lot of people within Sports Night, the well-roundedness and versatility is something that Medill really prides itself on and tries to get us to embody. So that's really great to hear. Something else I have to ask is, of course, this when you got that Deloitte job a few years ago, it, of course, took you overseas to London. So I'm very curious what that adjustment was like. I don't know, how much had you been to London before? Moving for the job, and um, how did you like it? And obviously you're still there, so I'm assuming that you are loving London. I've been there; it's a fantastic place.
Yeah, I mean, I came to visit when I was in high school and then right after COVID. And I actually moved directly from Chicago to Manchester, so up to Northern England, which is even different than London. And I think for me, that was a great transition into the UK. It was a bit of a smaller city. And so I was able to luckily make a lot of great friends right off the bat, a lot of which that I worked with. But I remember moving to Manchester. I'd never been there. I didn't know a single person in the city. Even when I was interviewing, all of my friends and family were like, "Oh, you're never going to move to Manchester." I remember going through the interview, calling my dad, and being like, "Actually, I think I might do it. The role sounds pretty cool." Um, so I think for me, like I had a bit of an ease into it because of the great people that I work with, made it a lot easier. But I think there definitely are some cultural differences. You get more vacation in the UK, which has been a great difference.
Of course.
The language, we both speak English, but very different versions of English. A lot of the words that I use, people didn't know what it meant. A lot of words they used, I didn't know what it meant. So just kind of bridging that gap a little bit. But as someone who used to play soccer, living in Manchester and now London, where I'm surrounded by the best soccer in the world, has been such an incredible opportunity for me to, as much as I can, go to games, travel and go with friends and all of that, go to the, pub or somewhere nearby and to be able to watch and just be, surrounded by people that love the game has been incredible for me over the last 4 years. And then, since I moved down to London about a year ago, it's been remarkable to see like how big London is. There's so many different opportunities, whether that be to play pickup or to, go to rugby or cricket, which are two other sports that I had to kind of learn when I got over here, but have been really fun to go see. And so I think it's just given me a whole bunch of opportunity to meet new people, to understand new cultures, because especially London is such an international city. And I think for me, it's been just an incredible opportunity to grow my network, but also to grow my reach. One of the things that I want to do at the end of the day and leave a legacy of is like impacting the game, especially as a female athlete, to be able to grow women's sport. And I think that's one of the great things that I've been able to do here with some of my work, which has been an incredible opportunity.
And as far as your work goes, do you have any favorite projects or experiences that you've had at Deloitte that really stick out to you, that were particularly meaningful, and left an impact on you in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the kind of following on that women's sports trend, one of the big things that I was asked to do, I believe in 2022, was to write a report on women's sport projecting the value of the industry. So, how much revenue would be generated by the global women's sports industry, which was a very tough task. It took me about 9, 10 months, I think, to put together. And once we put out that number in 2023 on, the women's sports industry is going to reach $1 billion this year. I didn't realize the impact that that would have. And that report was in every headline, every article about women's sport. It was in every pitch deck for commercial partners for women's sports organizations. It was in every investment deck. And so, what that was able to do was provide some financial um, I guess, evidence that the industry was growing. And so we've been doing that every year. And the report has since reached billions of people, not even millions, billions of people, which is, again, when I talk about the impact that I want to make and the legacy I want to leave, especially in other parts of the world, in the US, as well, like that type of financial evidence is incredibly helpful to move the needle. And again, when I first wrote that report, I never expected that type of response from the market and from the industry. And so to be a part of that has been really special to me. And hopefully we can continue to build that. We just released our latest report a few weeks ago, and that now projects the industry to reach $3 billion in 2026. So how quickly it's moved, and hopefully to see a lot of that benefit for athletes and fans as well will be that next step going into next year.
Again, I just have a few more questions. My next one, as you say that, if you were to go back, this is a classic one. But if you were to go back to your freshman year Northwestern version of yourself, and if you were to tell her the impact that you're having on not just sports, but I mean the game that you grew up playing, that you played through college. If you were to tell your younger self about that impact that you're making, like how do you think you'd react?
Wouldn't believe it for sure. Um, I think I always have been an ambitious person, a career driven person. I always knew that sport, unlike a lot of other industries, has a way of connecting people. No matter what's going on in the world, if you're a Chelsea supporter, you can all come together. If you're a Spurs supporter, whatever it may be, you all come together. And so I always knew that I wanted to be a part of that type of impact. Um, However, when I moved over to the UK, I think I realized quite quickly how much I took the opportunities that I had as a female athlete for granted when I was going through, college soccer or anything like that. I think having that open access to be able to play and to be able to succeed and earn a living wage and all of that has been accelerated over the past few years. But I probably thought if you were to ask me freshman year that that would be because I was on the pitch, on the field, and not necessarily on the business side, kind of pushing that narrative forward from a different angle. So I think for me, it's been, you know, if I were to look back at my freshman year and tell her, like, you're taking all the right steps, I think for me, sometimes I got really worried that, I might not be going the right path. I might not be doing the right thing to be able to make the impacts that I wanted to. But what I didn't understand was all of the different ways that I was going, the classes I was taking, the activities I was doing, was building all of the skill set to be able to get to this point. And, I hope 5, 10 years from now, as in America, we're seeing it quite heavily in other parts of the world as well, that we'll start to see an incredible impact for young girls, women to be able to play in the same way and the same opportunity that I've had my whole life. So that's kind of what I'm looking for going forward. And again, if let's say 5 years down the road that happens, looking back at my freshman self and being like, yep, this is the path you've taken would be incredibly special.
Very special indeed. And my final question, obviously Northwestern has made a huge impact on your life, from the newsroom to the classroom to the soccer field. Clearly shaped who you are and the success that you've had. If you could sum up Northwestern's impact on your life in one word, I know that's tough. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you could think of one word to describe the impact that Northwestern has had on you, what would it be?
Probably community. I think sometimes when you're a student at Northwestern, there's so many different things and so many different ways that you can go. But, you know, as a alumni, however many years down the road now, I still feel that same sense of community, that bleed purple type of um, behavior and mindset. I think, as an athlete, sometimes you're a bit secluded or in that bubble that, you feel a sense of community and all of that, but I didn't expect that to continue this many years down the line. I think the alumni base is incredible. It's always funny over in the UK because they don't necessarily have that same, you know, affiliation with their schools. And it seems like every single time I go into a meeting, someone has a connection with Northwestern. Like my colleagues are sick of me talking about it, and then we go off onto this discussion about how great Northwestern is. And so again, I think that community aspect is something that I feel 100%, and I hope that students now will feel comfortable, reaching out to me and letting, if any way I can help them and kind of continuing that community going forward. So that's probably my one word.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. Great to hear from you, and great to hear from a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.